If you're thinking about buying a condo in Calgary, there's a lot of things that you should know. And in this video, I'm going to address some of the key things that most people have no idea when it comes to condo. I've had the good fortune of selling a lot of condominium in Calgary, so I have seen a lot of things go right, and I've seen a lot of things go wrong with condo. So in this video, you're going to learn a lot of things. And if you like the video, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and you can get notified on more of these videos that I do. And of course, if you like the video, definitely, give it the thumbs up. And of course, you can hit the bell button and be even notified when I put more of these out. Now here's maybe one of the dirty little secrets about Alberta. Back in the 70s, the Alberta government was the worst slumlord of anybody. They had in Edmonton and Calgary, they owned all of these buildings that they built back in the day, and they had them all rented out, and they literally ran them into the ground. And there's thousands of these buildings all over Edmonton and Calgary. And what happened is, in the 90s, they started selling them off. And they started selling them off to developers. And unfortunately, some of these buildings were bought by the wrong developer. And they would put on the lipstick and paint, and they would do the stuff that you would see from the naked eye, but many of them didn't get into some of the structural things that they should have done. Like building envelopes, having the roof done correctly, parkades. These are really expensive things to fix. And I've seen, unfortunately, some people who have bought into these condos that were redone, and they just assumed that the developer did absolutely everything, and unfortunately they didn't. And so many times these people would move in, and all of a sudden, once the last unit had sold, it goes into a management company to take over, and then they bring in the engineer. And the engineer does what they call a reserve fund study. And in that reserve fund study, they have to find out the things that are potentially going to be expensive to fix. And that's sometimes where things start to fall apart. And all of a sudden, everybody in there finds out that perhaps the parkade has a big expenditure. And now everybody in there has to fork out a lot of money to fix the problem. And that is one of the biggest concerns with certain buildings in Calgary. Now, keep in mind, I am not saying don't buy condominium at all. A condominium can be a great investment, and there's some awesome buildings, but you have to be able to know which buildings to be buying into and what to look for. All right, so some of these condos that are the biggest red flags are buildings that were built around the Beltline. And some of them are known as post-tension cable building. But I want to make something really clear. Again, I am not suggesting not to buy a post-tension cable building. What I'm telling you is this is something you need to be aware of. But these buildings in particular, back in the 70s and into the 80s, this was a technology that they used back then where they put these big cement pillars and they have these cable strands that connect them as part of the construction. And what they didn't realize is that over time, there can be some condensation that builds in there, and these cable strands can start to fray and break. And there's really not a lot you can do about it other than really monitor it and do some minor repairs to give it more longevity. But it's not like you can replace these cable strands. So you have to really look carefully at this, and you need an engineer's report to be sure that these cable strands are definitely going to last the test of time to be in a building that you want to own. Now, I can tell you, there's some buildings in Calgary, CMHC, which is the insurer of mortgages, they won't even insure a mortgage on some of these condos because they're afraid that there could be such a major expense that some people might even just walk away, or worst case scenario, the building can become unsafe. And can you imagine that? That would just be horrible, because now the building really would be useless unless the building was torn down and completely rebuilt, which would lose everybody's entire investment. But I want to emphasize there's also some post-tension cable buildings that don't have too many problems. I've actually owned one myself in Killarney, and if it's the right building, it'd be okay. Once again, you have to be careful as which building you choose. but these buildings are of a higher risk, and there's a lot of them in Calgary. Now, when you're buying a condominium, it's kind of like buying shares in a company. You know, you want to make sure that the company itself is financially okay. So when you're buying a condominium, it's recommended to take a look at all of the condominium documents. Now, there's a lot of documents there, and most people would have a hard time understanding when they read them, okay? So you can get an expert to represent you and read these for you. But we're going to look at things like the bylaws. We're going to look at the insurance certificate. And by the way, that's a big one, and most people have no idea whether a condo has enough insurance. I can tell you from experience, there was a project years ago out in Airdrie where the building burnt down, and that's when everybody discovered that there wasn't enough money to actually pay for the entire building to be rebuilt again, and everybody had to cough up 30 grand to finish it off to get back to where they were, and nobody expected that. So insurance is a big deal. We have to look at, as I mentioned earlier in this video, the reserve fund study and see what the situation is there by the engineer, and is the building on track? Do they have enough money in the reserve fund should something go wrong? We want to take a look at the management agreement, you know, that the property management agreement has with the company. Of course, the financials, we have to take a look at that. The audited financials, the budget for the coming year. Are we taking in enough money to cover all the expenses and still saving some for a rainy day? You want to take a look at the minutes to the meetings. By the way, all condo boards in Alberta are supposed to have a monthly minutes to their meetings. There are boards that don't meet monthly, but they're supposed to. And one of the things that disturbs me about condos, though, is that the Condominium Property Act of Alberta, well, they've got an act there that is designed to protect condo owners, but they don't really have the condo police. So I've seen a lot of boards that are not compliant, and that's a little bit disturbing. Even some of the small condo self-managed buildings, I've seen self-managed buildings that don't even have condo fees being charged. They don't even have any condo documents available, and there's nobody policing that. A little bit disturbing. The government should take a more active role in ensuring that there's compliance on these issues, because it really is for the protection of everybody involved. But I would be very nervous if I was a buyer and wasn't able to look at condominium documents. But I have seen boards that are very well run, and in those kind of boards, I'd be a big fan of buying in there. And those condominium documents, they're always easy to get. And of course, everything is filled out correctly. All the meetings have been met every month. They do an annual general meeting. Everything is transparent. That's the kind of building that we look for. And when I'm working with clients and helping them find a Calgary condo, that's the sort of thing that we try to find in those buildings. Now, I've been doing this a long time. I've probably been inside almost every single condo building in this entire city. And even though I don't know everyone intimately, but I can tell you I know most of them. And I'm able to save my clients a lot of time by just focusing on the good buildings right off the bat. You know what the most expensive things to fix on a condo is? Number one, building envelopes. I'm shocked by how many times I've seen condo buildings that don't have good building envelopes. What happens is water gets in behind, and it actually creates all kinds of problems, including mold and whatnot. Really expensive to fix. Well, roofs are an obvious. I mean, really expensive if the roof isn't done correctly. So we really got to pay attention to that. Underground parkades. Oh my goodness. I saw a condo building downtown Calgary where it was so bad, they actually had to come, every person in that building had to come up with $40,000 to fix the problems with the parkade. And the last thing is something you probably wouldn't even think of, but elevators. Elevators can be really expensive. My favorite elevator is an Otis elevator. Every time I go into a condo now, I take a look and see which elevator it is. When it's Otis, it's nice and smooth. It kind of goes up and down. It's not one of those elevators where you get in and all of a sudden it just kind of stops with a clunk and you wonder if you're going to fall back down. So these are the sorts of things. They're little things, but they're also big things at the same time. We have to be aware of them. And so that's what you need, is good guidance when it comes to buying condominiums in Calgary. Anyway, I've given you a lot of information on condos. You can tell I have a lot of experience with it, and I've really only scratched the surface when it comes to this. But if this video has been helpful, definitely hit the subscribe button. And of course, if you have questions, don't be afraid to reach out. You can text me, you can message me on Facebook, you can phone me, which not too many people do nowadays because everybody likes to text and email. But just reach out in every way you feel comfortable, and I'll give you more detailed information and teach you even some more things to look for when it comes to condominiums.